On some days, history does not announce itself with noise. It arrives quietly, marked by absence. Today, 4 American lives came to rest, each different in craft, each united by impact. An actor who moved between blockbuster films and intimate television moments. A musician who kept rhythm steady while a generation searched for meaning. A goaltender who endured pain and pressure without stepping aside. A character performer who understood that presence did not require dominance. Their paths never crossed, yet their work became part of the same national memory, playing in living rooms, stadiums, theaters, and headphones across decades. This hour is not about headlines or spectacle. It is about contribution, endurance, and the spaces these figures filled without asking for attention. What remains is not silence, but echo, carried forward by those who remember. The news arrived quietly, confirmed without spectacle, marking the end of a life spent largely outside the spotlight but never outside the work. Thomas Kent Carter passed away on January 9, 2026. He was 69 years old. His name may not have dominated marquees, but his presence lived inside decades of American film and television, familiar to millions who may not have known it at the time. Born in December 1956, Carter came of age in an industry that still relied on dependable character actors. Hollywood in the late 1970s was changing, and Carter entered it without fanfare, moving easily between genres that demanded range rather than fame. He was part of stories that mattered, even when the stories were not about him. His early film work placed him inside culturally important projects. Corvette Summer introduced him during a period when youth-driven cinema was finding its voice. Southern Comfort followed, offering a darker, more reflective tone. Then came The Thing, a film that would later earn lasting respect for its atmosphere and restraint. Carter did not seek attention in these roles. He supported the world around him. A colleague later reflected online, Tom was the kind of actor who showed up prepared, stayed generous, and never tried to steal a scene. Directors trusted him. Actors leaned on him. It was a quiet compliment, but one that followed him throughout his career. As the 1980s unfolded, Carter became a steady figure on television. In an era when network TV gathered families into the same room each night, he became part of that shared rhythm. As the lead in Just Our Luck, he carried a series without excess, grounding it with calm presence rather than force. Recurring roles on shows like Punky Brewster and Good Morning, Miss Bliss placed him inside the daily lives of young viewers. These were not performances designed to linger loudly. They were meant to feel safe, familiar, and human. And they did. Television at the time rewarded consistency, and Carter delivered it. He moved from sitcom warmth to dramatic depth without demanding reinvention. That flexibility became his signature. One casting director later wrote, "If Thomas Kent Carter was on the call sheet, you knew the tone would hold." He made scenes feel balanced. The film roles continued quietly. Dr. Detroit, Runaway Train, and later Space Jam showed his ability to step into very different worlds without friction. Whether surrounded by intensity or humor, Carter adjusted without visible effort. He understood the assignment, and he honored it. As the industry shifted in the 1990s, Carter adapted again. Prestige television began to rise, and his later work reflected that evolution. His appearance in The Corner marked a tonal shift, showing a depth shaped by time rather than ambition. It was not a return. It was a continuation. Those who worked with him often spoke about his professionalism. There were no stories of chaos or ego. Just preparation, courtesy, and attention. An assistant director once shared, "Tom never made the day harder." That matters more than people realize. His passing was acknowledged without speculation or public drama. No cause was announced. There were no headlines chasing meaning. Only confirmation, followed by quiet reactions from those who remembered him best. On social media, tributes came not from viral accounts, but from peers. He was always kind, one former co-star wrote. Always listening. Always present. Another post read simply, one of the good ones. We need more like him. Carter's career did not chase legacy. It built one by accumulation. Scene by scene. Episode by episode. Year after year. He belonged to a generation of actors who believed the work was enough. He never became a household name, but he became something rarer. A familiar face. A trusted presence. Someone viewers felt they knew, even if they could not immediately place him. In many ways, Thomas Kent Carter represented a disappearing model of Hollywood. An actor defined not by branding or spectacle, but by dependability. By showing up. By fitting into stories that were larger than any single performance. His work continues to live quietly. In reruns. In streaming libraries. In moments when a viewer recognizes a face and feels a sense of comfort without knowing why. That is how his legacy endures. Not through loud remembrance, but through continuity. Through the feeling that something familiar remains, even after the person is gone. Thomas Kent Carter leaves behind a body of work that never demanded attention, yet earned it through time. His absence may not echo loudly, but his presence still exists, woven into the fabric of American television and film, steady and unbroken. The confirmation came without noise, shared quietly among fans who had learned to listen closely. Bob Weir passed away in January 2026, closing a chapter that had been playing, uninterrupted, for more than half a century. Born in 1947, Bob Weir was never positioned as the face of the Grateful Dead. He was something steadier. From the beginning, his role was to hold the center while everything else moved freely around it. In a band built on exploration, he became the structure that allowed the journey to continue. The Grateful Dead formed in a moment of cultural searching, and Weir grew alongside it. As the music stretched and bent, his rhythm stayed grounded. His guitar work was not meant to dominate. It was meant to support, to guide, and to return the music home when it drifted too far. His songwriting reflected the same balance. Drawing from American folk, country, and blues, Weir helped carry old traditions into new spaces. The lyrics spoke of roads, loss, humor, and survival. They did not reject the past. They reshaped it for a generation looking for meaning without rules. Decades of touring followed, long nights and longer roads. The Grateful Dead became less a band and more a community, held together by shared experience rather than expectation. Through creative tension and personal loss, Weir remained present, steady in his commitment to the music and the people who followed it. A longtime fan once wrote, "Bob didn't chase the spotlight. He made sure the song never fell apart." It was a simple observation, but one echoed often by those who understood his place in the sound. When the Grateful Dead disbanded in 1995 after the death of Jerry Garcia, it was not treated as an ending. For Weir, it became a responsibility. The music continued through RatDog, Further, and later Dead and Company. These projects were not about reliving the past. They were about keeping something alive. Weir approached those years with care. The songs were allowed to breathe, to change, and to age honestly. New musicians joined, younger audiences arrived, and the rhythm held. A fellow performer later said, "Bob treated the music like a living thing. You don't freeze it. You protect it." Recognition came, though it never seemed to define him. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction and Kennedy Center honors were acknowledgments of cultural impact, not closing statements. Weir continued to play, to tour, and to listen, long after he no longer needed to prove anything. His passing in January 2026 was met with quiet reflection rather than shock. There was sadness, but also gratitude. Across social media, messages appeared not in disbelief, but in thanks. The rhythm is still here because he was, one tribute read. Another simply said, "He taught us how to stay together." Bob Weir's legacy is not measured by charts or headlines. It lives in endurance. In the way music can wander without falling apart. In the way communities form around shared sound and shared time. He showed that leadership does not always stand at the front. Sometimes it stays slightly to the side, listening closely, holding the pulse steady so others can move freely. As the final notes fade, the rhythm remains. Bob Weir leaves behind a musical language built on trust, patience, and connection. And in that rhythm, still felt and quietly strong, his presence continues. The news was confirmed in the early hours, shared without drama, carried softly through the hockey world. Glenn Hall passed away on January 7, 2026, closing the life of a man whose strength was measured not in moments, but in endurance. Born in 1931 in post-war Canada, Glenn Hall grew up in a time when resilience was learned early. Life was physical, winters were long, and comfort was rare. Those conditions shaped him long before professional hockey ever did. By the time he reached the NHL, toughness was not a strategy. It was a habit. Hall entered professional hockey during an era that demanded everything from goaltenders and offered little protection in return. Equipment was thin. Schedules were unforgiving. Pain was expected, not discussed. In that world, Hall did not rely on flair. He relied on routine. His rise in the NHL was steady and disciplined. Night after night, he took the ice with the same focus, the same preparation, and the same refusal to step aside. While others rested, Hall stayed in the crease. While injuries piled up, he adjusted and continued. At the center of his legacy stands a record that still feels unreal. Glenn Hall played 502 consecutive regular season games as a goaltender. It was not a streak built on luck. It was built on tolerance, mental control, and an understanding of his own limits. Exhaustion was constant. Rest was rare. A former teammate once said, "Glenn didn't talk about pain. He just solved the problem and played the next game." That quiet mindset defined him more than any statistic ever could. Out of necessity, Hall changed how the position was played. The butterfly style was not born from theory or ambition. It was practical problem solving. Dropping to the knees conserved energy and protected the net more efficiently. What began as survival became innovation. At the time, few noticed the shift. But over years, then decades, it reshaped goaltending. Today, it is the foundation of modern play. Hall never claimed ownership of the change. He simply did what worked. The achievements followed naturally. Vezina trophies recognized his consistency. All-star selections reflected respect earned over time. The 1961 Stanley Cup marked a peak, but not a conclusion. For Hall, every season was treated the same. One game at a time. Even after his playing days ended, his influence stayed present. Goaltenders studied his discipline. Coaches referenced his stamina. His record remained untouched, not because others lacked talent, but because the game itself had changed. When news of his passing spread, the response was measured and reverent. Tributes focused less on trophies and more on character. One message shared online read, "He didn't just guard the net. He guarded the standard." Another former player wrote, "Glenn Hall taught us what showing up really means." His death on January 7, 2026, was acknowledged calmly, much like the way he lived. There was no spectacle, no sudden shock. Only reflection. Glenn Hall's legacy is not loud. It does not demand attention. It endures quietly, inside the structure of the game itself. Every time a goaltender drops into the butterfly. Every time consistency is valued over flash. Every time toughness is shown without words. He represented an era that asked everything of its players and gave little back. And still, he gave more. Glenn Hall leaves behind a definition of durability that time has not erased. The crease is quieter now. But the standard he set remains, steady and unbroken, guarding the game he helped shape. The news was shared softly, without urgency, reaching those who remembered a familiar face before they remembered a name. Richard Dimitri passed away on December 18, 2025, closing a life shaped by timing, patience, and quiet precision. Born in 1942, Dimitri built his career during a time when film and television relied on ensembles rather than stars alone. Success did not come from standing at the center of the frame, but from understanding how every piece fit together. Dimitri understood that balance early, and he carried it through every role. He was a performer who knew when to enter a scene and when to let it breathe. His work never pushed forward. It supported what was already there. That restraint became his signature, even when audiences did not notice it consciously. His dual roles in When Things Were Rotten showed that control could sharpen comedy. By playing against himself, Dimitri relied on timing rather than exaggeration. The humor landed because it was measured. The characters felt complete without becoming distractions. A fellow actor later recalled, Richard had perfect rhythm. He knew exactly how long to stay in a moment. It was a skill that could not be taught, only earned through experience. In film, Dimitri often served as connective tissue. Appearances in Johnny Dangerously, The World's Greatest Lover, and Let It Ride strengthened scenes without overtaking them. He gave stories weight by grounding them, allowing lead performances to rise naturally. His television work followed the same path. Over decades, Dimitri appeared across different eras of programming, adapting to changing tones without losing his sense of restraint. Each role felt placed rather than inserted. Each appearance carried quiet purpose. Casting directors trusted him. Writers respected him. A longtime producer once said, when Richard showed up, the scene was safe. He would never pull focus, but he always added depth. That reliability kept him working, even as the industry shifted around him. Dimitri never chased fame. He worked within it. His face became familiar to viewers who may not have known his name, but recognized his presence. That recognition carried comfort, a sense that the story was in capable hands. When news of his passing spread, the reaction was gentle. There were no dramatic headlines. Instead, messages appeared from those who had worked beside him. One tribute read, "He made everyone else better, and never asked for credit." Another simply said, "A true professional. Always kind." His death on December 18, 2025, was acknowledged without dramatization, much like the life he lived. There was sadness, but also appreciation for a career built on respect rather than attention. Richard Dimitri represents a kind of performer that often goes unnoticed, yet remains essential. Character actors like him shape the emotional texture of film and television. They create trust between the audience and the story. Long after names fade, faces remain. Dimitri's work continues to surface in reruns and quiet moments, reminding viewers of a time when balance mattered more than volume. His legacy lives in the scenes that still hold together because he was there. And in that quiet contribution, Richard Dimitri is remembered, not for stealing the moment, but for making it last.